Le circostanze con le quali sono stato accolto mi hanno movimentato profondamente.
Depend on how sincerely and loyally we participate in this meeting, whether it will become a historical event or just an everyday fact destined to fade away. Given this situation, it won't surprise you if I speak with blunt honesty. I quickly add that the joyful confusion of this moment of reunion, after divides and separations, will not eliminate the necessity of settling certain personal and political questions. Otherwise, this union, which we wish to be very fruitful, cannot be anything but painfully sterile. What are we searching for? We who are members of USM, the Fascio of Fighters, the Association of Fighters, the Association of RDT, the Union of Demobilized, the Association of Volunteers, the Association of Garibaldians, the Republican Party, the Italian Socialist Union, the Corridoni Club, and so on. We, united in the Intesa e Azione Committee, formed during the movement against the high cost of living. We are looking for the smallest common ground for this understanding and action. Shall we find it? Yes. We come from different schools. We have different temperaments, and temperaments separate men more than ideas. We are an individualistic people, but all this does not stop something else from bringing us together and binding us in these current circumstances. And in what concerns tomorrow's actions, the basis of unity, there can be 1,000 shades of ideas among us, but we all agree on one important point, and that is in regarding the socialist manifestation as a bluff, a comedy, speculation, and blackmail. Also, we all agree on distinguishing between the Socialist Party and the mass of workers. The Socialist Party has held power until yesterday, the name of being a pure revolutionary organization, of being the protector and the exclusive, genuine representative of the working masses. This is all nonsense and must be cleared up. Regarding statistics, we found out that out of 42 million Italians, hardly 60,000 were enrolled in the Socialist Party in August of 1919, and the dominating element is a group composed of lower middle-class people in the most narrow-minded sense of the word. In the unlikely and absurd event of a triumph by the Leninist revolutionaries, 10 of these idiots will be tomorrow the 10 ministers of the Italian nation. The Socialist Party is one thing, and the organized mass of working men is another, and the disorganized mass, which is 7 times larger than the rest. We shouldn't approach the working class in a sometimes smug way, sometimes in a theatrical manner, like demagogues. The masses must be educated, and for this reason, they need the plain truth. Many of the crowds influenced by the socialists aren't worth flatterings, because they consist of masses of brutes, infected and barbarized by the Red Gospel. Our working class colleagues know all about it because they have had to leave certain factories. We shouldn't appear as frauds promising instant paradise, but as educators who do not seek success, popularity, salaries, or votes. Produce, produce, produce. The warning of Marheim, the way in which the working masses should and must be spoken to, has been shown to us by Merheim, one of the thinking heads of French syndicalism. Last January, he gave a very important speech, and it would be good to go over those parts of it that are most important right now, especially those touching upon the relations between economics and politics and the necessity of production. The militant socialists must tell the truth, and all the truth to the masses, even if the truth brings hatred and slander. Now, the truth is there for everyone who thinks about it. The bad living conditions causing problems for the masses won't be fixed by just increasing wages. That solution doesn't work, but completely against economic principles. People need to know that the way we produce and distribute goods has to change. If effective and lasting remedies are to be found for existing bad conditions, and that this can be achieved through the power of organization. It's great to get loud applause by telling the audience at meetings that we're overstocked with commodities and that they can consume without limit and enjoy comforts by setting wages according to their wishes without increasing. True courage is telling people that everyone is both a producer and a consumer, and that the continued increase of production is necessary and indispensable. Courage lies in saying that it is not only impossible to meet those common needs natural to everyone's without regular production, but it's absolutely impossible to obtain general comfort for everyone if at the same time individual production in the general interest is not increased. True courage is in stating that the purely political revolution which inflames people's minds would not solve the social problem, the solution to which has been precipitated and rendered essential by the war. Courage lies in repeating we need to tirelessly inform them that the revolution must be economic, not something that happens in the streets by a frenzied crowd, destroying just to destroy. Courage lies in saying that an economic revolution draws its substance from labor, and that it is strengthened, advanced, and carried out by the intensification of production, whether in the fields or in the factories, and by further utilizing scientific processes and production methods. We agree on a third point regarding the Italian situation in connection with existing circumstances, that is in maintaining that our national situation is critical, though far from desperate. Briefly, it is this. Since the 1st of July, we have defaulted on our debts to England. Since July 31st, other financial agreements with the United States must be faced. To save the situation, a loan of $1 million must be arranged. The railways have a coal supply for only 15 more days. There are enough supplies for another 20 days, that is until the end of the month. 2 million tons of food must be imported to save us from immediate hunger, but these financial and economic agreements depend on the political ones in Paris. We've seen an almost certain possibility of obtaining large concessions in Asia Minor with the coal mines of Heraclea. Clemenceau raised objections, but Lansing said he saw no obstacles, given that Italy approved the exploitation of the Tsar mines by France. We may also acquire oil wells in Armenia, but these acquisitions in the East are in turn dependent on the Adriatic agreements. The issue of Fiume is already complicated by the previous delegation's work, which had accepted the idea of a free state, but the project of Taddeo presented future risks for preserving the Italian character of Fiume is concerned because the Italian majority in the city would be overwhelmed by the mass of Slavs in the countrysides. So the question is of reducing these dangers to the smallest possible limits by introducing another plan that would replace the idea of a free state, that of a free city with limited boundaries. In Dalmatia, we can only save the centers, which has an Italian majority, with guarantees for the safeguarding of those Italian minorities scattered in the other centers. The eventual loss of Sebenico, which had strategic and not national value, would be compensated for by some other strategic point to be given to Italy. Lansing said that this would eventually be aimed for in the Mediterranean. Given this situation, it is no exaggeration to say that the general socialist strike is a real attempted crime against the nation. And note, I could understand the strike aimed at establishing the Soviet in Italy, but I do not understand or accept this one, which has no purpose, goal, or justification. It must and will fail because the leaders themselves are in the cul-de-sac of this dilemma, either tragedy because the state at this moment has its repressive machinery in full working order, or a comedy in case of a workers' revolt already anticipated, and because they were tired of serving a socialist party mostly made up of middle-class people. It might be worth noting, to counter the objection in the paper of Portogruaro, which would like to deny our right of rising up against the strike on the grounds that we were in favor of war. What it says is the damage done in 2 days of strike compared with that done in 4 years of war. We showed these gentlemen that 4 years of neutrality would have harmed us more. Plus, it would have been an indelible moral disgrace. Reactionaries and vice versa. For me, revolution is not an attack of St. Vitus's dance or an unexpected fit of epilepsy. It must have force, aims, and above all, methods. In 1913, when the Socialist Party was already rotten, it was I who put into circulation the words which made the pulses of the big men of Italian socialism beat. This proletariat needs a bloodbath. I said it has had one and it lasted for 3 years. This proletariat needs a historical day. And it had thousands. It was necessary then to stir the masses because they had become weak and unfeeling. Today, this situation no longer exists. Today, the only way not to live in fear of a revolution. We are in the midst of it, beginning in August 1914, and it's still ongoing. It's not about questioning something, of entering into a revolution as one passes from a state of tranquility to a state of action. The task of truly free spirits is different. If this great and immense process of changing the world slows down or becomes unclear, we can speed it up. But if it's already speeding up like crazy, then our job is to hit the brakes and slow it down to avoid falling apart and going under. Being a revolutionary at certain times and in certain places can be the pride of a lifetime. But when those who talk about revolution are just parasites, you have to be brave enough to oppose them, even if it means being seen as a reactionary. One is always a reactionary and revolutionary for somebody. Fritz Adler, a revolutionary during Sturck's time, would be seen as a reactionary today compared to the communists. I am not afraid of the words. I am a revolutionary and a reactionary. Really, life is always like this. I am afraid of a revolution that destroys rather than creates. I am afraid of going to extremes, the madness policy, which at the core may lead to the destruction of our fragile mechanical civilization, deprived of its solid moral foundation, and the arrival of a terrible race of dominators who would reintroduce discipline into the world and restore the necessary hierarchies, with the cracking of whips and machine guns, the compass. At the same time, when it comes to reaction and revolution, I have a compass in my pocket that guides me. All that tends to make the Italian people great finds me favorable, and vice versa. Everything that tends to degrade, brutalize, and impoverish them finds me opposed. Now socialism falls into the second category. I find it odd that my friend Carly, the founder of the National Association of Fighters and a valiant soldier, puts the socialists among the advanced parties, challenging them with a series of questions, as he did in the last issue of Roma Futurista. I deny the title of vanguard to socialism. I deny the use and timeliness of any cooperation with this party. I maintain that the reactionary party in 1914, 16, 17, and 18 cannot become revolutionary in 19. I maintain that this serenading of the socialists is useless, and these advances are not made in a clean manner. One day, at the pivotal moment of human history, they embraced the cause of reaction represented by Germany, the Hohenzollerns, and Zukunft. Besides, it is idiotic and dangerous to flatter the official socialists. So we cannot reconcile ourselves with these people. There have been those who have joined today's movement. But the socialists have dismissed that help because they are megalomaniacs and harbor, among other things, the foolish pride of splendid isolation, the revision of the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles is not reason enough for cooperation. Things must be made clear. The socialists talk about canceling the peace. We just want to revise it. We do not completely condemn a work that a German, and a significant one at that, Edward Bernstein, has deemed to be 90% just. Revising the peace treaty shouldn't condemn the war. The Florentine Republican Union issued a statement defining acceptable limits of protest against the Treaty of Versailles. We have nothing to hide. Say the Florentine Republicans, even if it needs radical changes, the treaty represents the fall of 4 imperial autocracies and numerous dynasties, the creation of multiple republics, the re-establishment of Poland, the reconquest of Alsace and Lorraine, Trento and Trieste by Italy, and Jerusalem by civilized Europe. Is all this enough? As long as changes were made to testify to the utmost sanctity of Italian involvement in the terrible war unleashed by the barbaric German Hohenzollerns and Habsburgs. We don't agree, however, with the proposed general strike as a form of protest, because we say this with the traditional sincerity of our party. The country yearns for productive work, and these constant strikes do not help. The Treaty of Versailles must be revised to align with human progress. That's our belief as well. Instead of seeking or begging for useless cooperation, let's create our own plan of understanding and action. I refuse to accept new dogmas after having discarded the old ones. I believe it is possible to build a strong economic organization in Italy based on these principles. 1, ethnicity, absolute independence from all parties, groups, and factions. 2, federation and autonomy. 3, abolish all paid officials as much as possible. 4, no step should be taken without consulting the people through a referendum. The methods to achieve this can change with time and place. The organization will sometimes promote cooperation and sometimes conflict between the classes and the expropriation of class. It won't always be to work together, but neither will it always favor class preservation. When it expropriates, it's not to make everyone poor, but to make everyone rich. In the conquest of a colonial market and in certain customs-related questions, the middle classes and the working class can cooperate. When there's a division of spoils, then comes class war. However, class war in times of underproduction is absurd and destructive in the political arena. The electoral reform will go through. The review of lists and proportional representation will go through. That will determine, for obvious reasons, the major coalitions, the Socialist-Leninist, the Clerical Popular, and finally ours, which could be called the Alliance for the Constituent, the Republican Alliance, or the group of left-wing interveners. Our plan is to present candidates who promise to bring up the issue of constitutional revision in the first session of the new chamber. This is the founding principle as I see it. The lowest common ground we can all agree on and unite around. The moment is really favorable for this kind of organization. I believe all of us represented in this Milanese Committee of Agreement and Action can follow this path. It is about nationalizing this effort, making it a nationwide effort across Italy. If we wanted, we could count not in thousands, but millions of followers. Given Italy's current delicate economic situation, I refuse to join any movement that paves the way for Bolshevism and ruin. The victory cannot and must not be undone. I get why some are impatient, but I ask you to consider that while individual lives are measured in years, the lives of nations are measured in centuries. We shouldn't selfishly interpret general issues as personal ones. Good strategy is calculation and audacity. We do not wish to govern by force alone, because that would be dictatorship, which we condemn. First, we wish to gauge the masses through the upcoming elections. Once our principles have been accepted, we will act. The revolution we wanted and achieved in 1915 will be ours again by the victorious peace in its conclusive phase, and it will be called well-being, liberty, and peace. Especially Italy